Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another show, Ignite Your Heart and Soul. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and I have two wonderful gentlemen here who are going to raise your vibration. It's Jeffrey Stegman and Clayten Stedmann. Stegman and Stedman. I know this sounds like a comedy act, but I'm sure it's very, very serious, but we are going to have some fun with it. These are two men that met through a mutual friend. They were both working on accessing and utilizing high consciousness fields. Jeffrey Stegman was creating a high conscious fields and cultures in business, and Clayten Stedman, a coach in business and as a spiritual path, was creating a high conscious fields for healing the human mind, body, and spirit. They came together with an innovator who had devoted his life to creating free energy for humanity. Although he did not create the free energy device, he had discovered a way to redirect and focus large amounts of energy, any life force energy, known as the subtitle FLFE, FLFE. Some people call it fluffy, some people call it flife. Whatever it is, we don't mind as long as you get to use it, because using it is what's going to increase your own beautiful vibrational waves. It's what's going to help you tap into your own life force. It's going to help heal you, equilibrium you, and give you that beautiful energy boundary that we need in order to resonate and operate on a higher level. So let's dive in. We are going to talk a little technical in here, but not a lot. Really, it's more about what it does for you, what it does for humanity, how it helps us evolve, because folks, we need to evolve right now. We're looking at a world that is very, very disconnected. A lot of static going on, a lot of people seeking a conscious path because they're so tired of the old one. And how do they raise that consciousness? How do they step into it? How do they detox and dismiss the past programming and embrace a new one? When you set that energy field onto a beautiful resonance, and that automatically starts doing things for you, propelling you forward on your journey of life. This is a wonderful device that works in your home, on your phone, and it's something that will be signature to your home or your phone or you. And we're going to understand it here better today. We need all the help that we can get. We need it for ourselves, but we also need it for this planet, because if we don't, we might have kind of an energy disruption that kind of evicts us. So let's get together and get our energy going and understand how this device works. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for inviting us.
So I'm going to have you both talk a little bit about your background and how this all came about, and then we'll get right into the device itself. So Clayten, let's start with you, hon.
Well, I've been in the coaching business since about 1995 when I did my life skills coaches training. And I developed a specialty in my coaching practice that I call business as a spiritual path. And that's because I'd spent about 11 years before that. The main focus of my life was my philosophical pursuits. I was in an Eastern-based philosophy for 11 years before that and worked for private schools. So I did a career change because there was a large disruption, we'll call it, in the organization I was involved in. And so I left, as many other people did, and I needed a new focus for my career. I decided to go into the coaching business, and because of my spiritual interest and training over the previous 11 years, I decided to create a specialty called business as a spiritual path. And then it became business as a spiritual practice. And then eventually I had a few clients who did what we called business as a spiritual service. So business as a spiritual practice is where you have one part of your business that you consider your spiritual practice. So it could be showing up on time for meetings, could be just being organized. Business as a spiritual path is where you consider your business your monastery or your church, where it's where you look for life to reflect all of its lessons through the business experience you're having. And then hopefully we all get to the place where we're able to just devote our lives to service. Mm-hmm. And for many business people, business is an act of creativity, and it's very enlivening and very exciting. And we all work for a living, 90% of us, or 90, whatever that percentage is. And so we have that experience of working all our lives, and all of a sudden we stop working. And wouldn't it be interesting if we had the resources and the mindset to be able to work for the evolution of humanity, and just give all the resources that we continue to make, the time, energy, and money, or the resources we have, and just try to help each other. And so I had a few clients like that, and they were delightful to work with. They're all delightful, but that was a particularly satisfying experience. So I did that I'm still doing it, actually. I've been doing it for 23 years. I came across Dr. David Hawkins' work in 2004. I was reevaluating my practice. I'd been in practice for 9 years, and I was working with as a subcontractor for companies that were doing cultural transitions. So they were looking at creating high-performance cultures, and I was bringing my perspective and experience on business and spirituality into those organizations. And I came across Dr. Hawkins' work, and I thought, well, of course, I had about 6 people tell me I should read Power versus Force. So, when the universe is giving you a reminder, it's usually a sign that you should do something about it. Mm-hmm. After about 6 of my clients telling me, it's like, okay. So I read Power versus Force, and I was just in awe of it. I think it's up right there on my bookshelf. Mm-hmm. So, I formed a study group with 2 friends. One was a chiropractor who was 89 years old, and he was still practicing, still a very vital man. So he had a superlative sense of the body and its mechanics, and how, the basic premise of kinesiology is truth makes you go strong, and weakness makes you go, falsehood makes you go weak. And then I had another friend who was a scientist. He'd been with DuPont Chemical for 25 years. So he had a really clear understanding of procedure, process, and protocol. So I worked with these 2 gentlemen to try to get kinesiology to work, and we kind of drove each other crazy for 6 months. We worked in the evenings, and we just couldn't get it to work consistently. And the most accurate one was the scientist, because he would say the same thing the same way every time, because he knew that was the control. And theoretically, I understood it, but I didn't practice it at that time. And so, make a long story short, 5 years later, I finished reverse engineering the protocols in Dr. Hawkins' book. I found out that there was quite a few things that weren't being expressed that were very important in the process of doing kinesiology. And about that time, I'd met Jeff. That was 2004, about 2009. I met Jeff in 2007, 8. I'm trying to remember now. But I know that the last piece of the protocol was revealed when I was in Jeff's den, sitting on a speakerphone, talking to Dr. Hawkins' editor, who'd been working with him for 17 years. That was the last piece of the protocols that I needed. So eventually, when you can get good enough at kinesiology, you can test the level of appropriateness of the protocols to understand the process you're trying to do. And of course, it's a very iterative process where you have to learn a bit, develop expertise and consistency, learn a bit, demonstrate that it works, learn a bit. And so we finally got it down to the point where we knew the protocols were complete. And then, of course, there's always the dream is, if you go into kinesiology, at least my dream and many other people's dream, was that if you learn how to tell truth from falsehood, you can answer any question. Mm-hmm. And the reality of it is, even if you have a complete set of protocols and a complete understanding of the mechanics and the art of the process, it's a bit of an art and a science, that if you have an issue with a subject and you're not able to be at least neutral about it, you're not going to be able to get accurate data, because you are the instrument. Of course, we're connected to divinity at all times. That's the premise of kinesiology. And we can bypass the mind. And yet we have to have the personal development or spiritual development to be able to hold ourselves in at least a neutral, hopefully a loving position around a subject,
Mm-hmm.
or it skews our data.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a revelation that came after I had unraveled the protocols. And as you'd mentioned, from there, I'd met Jeff through a mutual friend. We'd worked together for a while. Jeff was a client of mine, and then we became friends and came across this inventor. And 5 years later, well, actually, came across the inventor in 2007. So it's actually 12 years later. But Jeff and I have been working with FLFE about 6 years now, about a year before we started the business. And then our 5th anniversary was September 24th, 2018. So I think that's
for actually a new, not innovation, because the invention was there, but coming together, 5 years is still very young, but you've, accomplished quite a bit in that time. So let's go over to Jeff and hear your journey to this point.
Sure. Yeah, my journey to FLFE is, it's so interesting. It wasn't a straight line journey as these are.
Right.
And my background was, on my own spiritual path, with teachers, always working with teachers, always, even in my business life, also working with coaches. And I've been in manufacturing and engineering. So that's really my background in creating a culture in a business where, it's loving and it's advancing the evolution of the people there and in their education and in their way of handling themselves in the world. So I came in with that background, and I was working with Clayten, as he said, as a coaching client. And then what was coming together is my business life and my spiritual life. And with the tool of kinesiology, which I became just more and more familiar with through Clayten's work with me, was the accuracy of these calibrations, of this testing. And being able to then take that into this FLFE invention that we came across, which was really the creation of a high consciousness field through a quantum, association, much like a human consciousness association. So, for instance, if you have a brother or sister and you think of them, a field is activated, in their location, and then whatever emotions you're feeling for them are then in that field, and they're benefiting from those if they're positive emotions.
Hopefully positive emotions.
Yeah.
Because negative works as well.
Right. It's all in the field. So what we discovered was a technology that works in the same way with an identifier to create that quantum connection. A field is activated in that place. And so we're not using a device that gets sent out, to a home. We're creating that quantum connection through the legal address, through coordinates, through a photograph of an object. We do a field around an object, or with a unique cellular phone number in a country. So with that kind of unique identifier, it's like thinking of your sister, and that field is created or activated there. So this inventor was working with technology in its similar ways, using photographs. It had kind of a long history leading up to that. But the discovery that it was a non-local phenomenon, just like kinesiology is, and Clayten had discovered that in working with the inventor, that this field could be activated anywhere in the world, instantly. There's no delay.
Right.
And that was the big breakthrough. And we really moved into service. We didn't have the idea of creating a business. We had the idea of where can we raise consciousness?
Yes, which so needs to be raised.
Yeah. So during the entire 2012, or most of the year, we worked on a project to raise consciousness everywhere that we could. And we just sort of listened to our guidance. We used kinesiology to test, and we used Google Earth, as a great tool to locate places on the planet, where, you know, a single place in a continent could be a lever point where raising consciousness in that spot could then raise the entire continent. And so we did that for a year. And at the end of the project, we rested and said, wow, that was cool, you know. And we really got the message at that point to turn it into a business where people could do that themselves.
Yeah.
They could apply this high consciousness field to their own home business, or, you know, around an object. And we created, as the business developed, that they could also give a free, you know, indefinite subscription at a little bit lower level of the field, anywhere in the world. So I'm sure many of them have gone into political, you know.
Yes.
That
would take the entire world to send that one out.
Right. But it's been interesting in the FLFE community of subscribers, which is all over the world now. It's like 22 countries. You know, they're thinking of projects like, okay, what about the headwaters of all the major rivers? What if you put a high consciousness field at the headwaters of all those rivers, and the water flowing through is affected positively? So, so my journey is from traditional business into a non-traditional business here, but really the mixing of both the spiritual path and these nonlinear technologies that are really, you know, we believe are coming onto the planet at this time, and many people are working with subtle energies in different ways.
Yes.
Because it's needed at this time, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it seems to be, since kind of quantum got recognized and understood, it opened up the doors quite considerably. And for a lot of people with this, you know, device energy, this kind of sounds rather maybe too technical, or to this or to that. Just think upon it as a prayer. You know, we give the value of prayer, that energy of prayer towards something. I'm asking for your prayers, let's pray for this. And we don't see it because it's not for the naked eye to see, is that a vibrational prayer that you're sending out to someone is received. You're sending out that energy, and that energy will elevate and help that person, or whatever the situation, or that country, or that political party, you know, whatever is needed at that time. We understand the power of prayer. We do it in good faith and in trust, yet we still seem to have a mistrust over devices. What are you talking about? Quantum energy, consciousness, raising our spirituality. You know, how does this work? I don't see it, so I don't understand it. But if you can pray, you're already doing it. You don't always need to understand the technology in order to apply it to yourself. And I'm so pleased, Clayten, that, you know, you looked at business and spirituality as one. I was talking to a scientist on one of my shows, and, you know, I clarified it as this when he was talking about, you know, the quantum fields and this and that. Scientists are now beginning to understand that those that choose to live in a spiritual conscious realm, a place from a higher vibration, are actually living in the quantum vibration. They're already living in a higher frequency. That scientists are now waking up and beginning to measure and understanding the impact of that. So whereas spirituality used to be looked at as kumbaya and hippies and far out man, you know, now people are beginning to truly understand it as an energy that is extremely productive. And in raising that consciousness up to this higher vibration, not only is healthier on your body, it's healthier on your psyche. You project out a more positive vibration, which becomes more invitational in your resonance and what you're doing. So we really are at a stage in the planet, in the stage in humanity, where we have to raise that vibration for several reasons. One, for our health. B, for that conscious connection of well-beingness towards each other, because we're so tired of the other. But the other is for the planet. The planet is rather saturated with negative energy. You know, especially people grounding, they're giving it all back to the planet. Well, what does the planet do with it? So in this vibrational rising, we're actually helping heal the planet as well. So it's not always the needing to actually understand how the science works. You drive a car. Do you understand every mechanical part of it? You go to a doctor. Do you actually understand every part of your body? You just know where it hurts. So I think stepping into this conscious energy and understanding not how it works, but what it's doing for you and the ripple effect that it's doing for humanity, and to be of service to humanity through this is really where the golden nugget is. So let us look at the effects that this can have on you. I know the other thing is I can hear them saying is, well, how can they pick up from your address? Because you said that bigger word, identifier. We all have a unique signature. Energy all has a unique signature. It is picking up that signature. And from that signature, that energy then can navigate to whatever that address, the phone, or even the person is. And again, don't worry about how it does it, just the fact that it does do it. So let's speak again now to the positive effects that this is having on people, because you've been doing test webinars for quite a long time where you've had people come in and speak to the benefits that they've had. And you've seen quite a number of results, hence the reason why it's right around the world now. Who would like to start on that, on some of the extraordinary benefits that you've seen?
Well, I could start and hand it over to you, Clayten, on the level of consciousness side, because that's really fascinating. So our mission is to support the optimal conditions for evolution of consciousness. So that in this field, in a high consciousness field, it's like going to a pilgrimage site, a sacred site. And there's very much the same energy or similar energies. 560 on the Hawkins map is the minimum level that the field at a property goes to. 575 around a cell phone or an object. And that compared to 520 or 420 or so on the Hawkins map, which is North America, each point being 10 times more energy present, is just a logarithmically huge amount of energy present. And so the body just bathes in that energy and starts to pull it in. And what we see very quickly, and people use the free trial we have right now, a 15-day free trial, they start to feel things getting unstuck. So where there's a flow of the subtle energy channels in the body, the meridians, and things start to be unstuck. And so people find it's easier for them to shed negative habits that they've had. It's easier for them to kind of get over issues that they've had interpersonally with others and move into a loving state more easily. Relationships with children seem to blossom into just more loving play and time together. So in this field of 560, on the Hawkins map, 540 is unconditional love. So you're held in this field that is sort of buoying up all parts of you. And what people find is that things come up to be healed, to be felt and experienced, that may have been an old, hurt, an old trauma, something that's happened. And it has an opportunity now to be supported in this field and to move. So the result is people's rising in consciousness on the
Yes.
map. Clayten, you want to talk about that, what we've seen there?
Sure. So there's many types of science. And just before the interview with Sara, we were talking about Dr. Emoto's work. And Dr. Emoto's work has been one of the most visual demonstrations, I think, in our age, that thoughts are things.
Yes.
And they're captured in a liquid crystal water format so that we can all see them. And there's other types of science now that are measuring the more subtle energy realms, kinesiology being one of them, but it's still fairly new. It's quite well established in the chiropractic field and in the nutrition field. Another example of a new type of science that's measuring subtle energies is a device called the gas discharge visualization device. And we had a kind of a senior practitioner of that type of science named Melissa Waterman do a study with us on FLFE environments and environments that were sort of pre-FLFE. And there was a significant reduction in entropy or chaotic energy on the property. And so that's on our website. You can find that. You just, so we have a little search section. You can just search GDV and it will come up, or Jeff will probably know exactly where it is. He spent some time in that recently. So those are other types of science that are confirming the more subtle energies. In Hawkins' work, he talks about one person at 500 level of consciousness compensating for 600,000 people below 200. So that's the consciousness compensation part. That's where one loving person does make a difference.
Yes.
So that's an encouragement for all of us to make an effort to at least be very positive for part of the day.
Actually, here's a question for you. We're seeing the animal species right now become our teachers. The ability to, cross species, in raising other species, little ones, and rescuing each other and loving each other. And, they're supposed to be mortal enemies. And here they are. They don't see their differences. They're just resonating on a vibrational love of togetherness. Have you ever actually measured, can one measure, the hurt vibration in these animals? Because they're pure love.
Yes, I know that a dog's wagging tail calibrates at 500.
Wow.
And a cat's purr calibrates at 500.
Wow.
Those are the animals we're most probably common with, is our domestic friends. It seems that if the basic survival needs of animals are taken care of, the innate nurturing, loving attention of a female animal or a male animal towards an innocent, young, developing animal, even of another species, can happen. I know it doesn't always happen. You certainly see
a lot more of it today. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes if there's more of it, there's just more media attention on it. But
right. Yes.
It's
yes. Bringing more the awareness of it. Yeah.
More the awareness. It's always. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to measure that. But yeah, it's very interesting when you see, animals that are supposed to eat each other taking care of each other.
Right. And what about children? Because, before they get reconditioned, sent to school and organization and structure and told what they can't do, in those initial years, those children live in wonderment. They are pure explorers, and everything they do is around love. What kind of signature do they have?
Well, I'll start with this and pass it on to Jeff. Typically, the mind doesn't get really activated in the child until it's 4 or 5 years old. And so in its pre-mind activated state, it has a lot of needs, of course, the needs for survival, and it lets us know that, very directly.
Very loudly.
Very loudly. And then when that's taken care of, they're just these wonderful little things that can find delight in they can play with a pen for like half a day, and you can enjoy them. You can enjoy watching them play with that pen and be reborn in their delight of seeing how they can take the simplest things and just be very present with it and play with that all the time. And some of the children come in very high from we happen to believe in previous incarnations, so some of them have a certain look and a quality about them. I think there's more and more coming in like that.
The indigo kids, as we call them. Yeah,
the indigo children, the crystal children. I'm not sure of all the categories and how integrous that interpretation is, but I think after 1986, since the world went over 200 on the Hawkins map of consciousness, it seems that children are being born with another quality of intelligence. Some people think it's a more resource nervous system. So we turn it over to Jeff and see if he wants to say something about that.
Well, I haven't done the level of research that you have on with kinesiology. Though we're certainly seeing it with our community, FLFE community, where we've got kids that seem to be coming in with more resources, more sort of mental, not only mental but spiritual resources. And what we're committed to is creating an environment that just lets people be themselves and not be negatively affected by out inputs coming in to the environment. And we added the EMF mitigation program in the beginning of December to all the service. Because what we found is that the level of consciousness of the environments was getting affected by outside influences. It could be geopathic stress, the movement of water underground was one of the major ones. And we found ways to mitigate that, to bring additional energy into that area so that more energy came in that was being taken away by water, for instance, in an underground stream. So we, over a number of years, we just kept adding these to the service, so that everyone would benefit, even though we designed it for one property. And then we found that EMFs were then causing more of an influence that was lowering the level of consciousness. And so that's affecting children, particularly it seems sensitive children.
Yes.
Who are coming in with, like Clayten said, perhaps a different nervous system in some ways. That this chaotic energy environment that can be created by electromagnetic fields, whether it's a cell tower or a router in the house or some all these distant routers and this soup of fragmented waveforms or EMF smog, that the children seem to be very affected by it, and some adults as well were EMF sensitive. And so as we created this addition to the FLFE program that's now part of it, we did a beta test with a group of sensitives and saw some really dramatic increases in ability to sleep. And this is both children and adults. And just a reduction in tension. It's really interesting. I hadn't expected that, but people seem to be holding tension in these chaotic environments. And then when it falls away, they just all of a sudden feel like it's like you're in the soup of gradually increasing temperature and you don't realize how hot it is. When you're free of that, when you're in this environment that's a sanctuary from that, then you relax. And so that's what we've been hearing from people, is that reduction in tension, and that really, comes through in their, interpersonal relationships as well as just your own personal work or your own personal development.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's business or whether it's relationships, everything is personal. You are bringing yourself. And of course, what we're talking about with the conscious enlightenment or the spiritual business is always being at that higher vibration, no matter what you're doing or who you're doing it with. And it's just that consciousness of being true to self, coming from the authentic place of intention. And expressing that out. You talked about Emoto, and for people who don't know about the water experiment, it was 3 rooms of water. One was ignored, one was given negativity, and one was given positivity. The ignored one, nothing came of it. The negative one turned black, and the positive one turned crystal. We have on our Let's Get Synced series under Eco Solutions, Yashiyuki Nomoto, who is his Emoto's assistant and secretary, and he's continued his work on. And of course, I'm introducing you guys so that you can do some cross-experimentation on that. But of course, he's tested waters around the world. What's the vibration of the people and the place, in correlation to the water crystallization? What people forget is we're 70% water.
Yes.
All right. So if we are going to be in that negative environment, if we're in that constant bombardment of anxiety, it changes our water. Our water is what is sustaining the body. It's what's feeding the organs, the psyche, the brain, which is also a huge percentage of water. So if we're living in that negativity all the time, it's breaking us down. It's causing dis-ease. And it's really essential for our own well-being that we raise that vibration so that, our own body can sustain our own well-being. So it's on all levels of imperativeness that we do raise this vibration, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and just understanding what's in our environments. I mean, there's just so much there. There's all the history of what's ever happened in that place where you live.
Yes.
I mean, you know, there's the
past signatures.
Yeah, many of us have had that experience going to an old battlefield or, you know, an old prison versus going to a cathedral or a temple or a mosque where there's been, you know, perhaps even centuries of prayer in one place. So that, you know, that's the other part of what we do, is that negative history that's in a place is one of the first things that the service does. And that's why the free trial is so good, because people can feel like that negative history gone.
I would imagine this would be absolutely fantastic in hospitals where, you know, there is life and there's people recovering, but there's a great deal of death and sorrow. And, you know, that saturation of sorrow, you know, builds up over a period of time. And having a device like this that can keep raising up that vibration to find that equilibrium, I would imagine not only help people recover, but for those that do lose people, you know, not be drawn down so much into the sorrow, but, you know, have a way of managing it through this high vibration. Have you experimented in any hospitals yet?
No, we haven't. I do have a contact with Children's Hospital and where I live, and there is the possibility of that in this new year. With the full FLFE service at 560 on the Hawkins map, there is a you know, a requirement or for someone in the location to know that it's on. And many times people will do the free trial or they'll subscribe, and they won't tell everyone because they want to see what happens.
Right. Yes.
See for themselves what occurs, but they'll be encouraging them to drink more water.
Yeah.
Because what we find in a high consciousness field is that, you know, as the body starts to move, the subtle energy channels start to flow, we start to grow and move, and our bodies start to use that energy for healing. More water's really helpful.
Well, you've got to flush out the negativity, and you've got to replenish the body, which is really important.
Right. So doing a whole hospital,
right,
you know, it would have to be a project that we work together, and hydration was really helped.
And I would actually even maybe starting with the staff, with the nursing staff and with the doctors. You know, there are so many that I was talking to someone the other day, you know, about how many doctors and nurses, after seeing so much death, especially, you know, in pediatrics, you know, how they just can't do it anymore. You know, because it starts piling up on them. So, you know, I don't even imagine testing with the actual staff themselves on their capability of it. Because, you know, you talked about anxiety and the amount of the anxiety that's in the world right now because we're unsure. We're in a transitional period. And we're in a period of waking up to a consciousness. And as you said, Clayten, stepping into service and realizing that what we're here for is to find our purpose, as I call it, our musical instrument, learning to perfect that best we can so we can join the orchestra of life. And that is the service when we join the orchestra. And each one of us is given a purpose. And it's up to us and our self-discovery to find out what it is. And when we are of service, that in itself raises our vibration, doesn't it? Being part of a collective where we know we're bringing that instrument that's, you know, got people's toes tapping, so to speak. And collectively you get those kind of people together, and that vibrational rising is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it, Clayten?
Yes. You know, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And we all affect each other.
Yes.
And an orchestra is a good example. There's a type of harmony that takes training and discipline and coordination. And many spiritual paths require those same set of principles. You know, spirituality is maybe once in a while sitting around a circle holding hands, but it's not always that.
Right.
But so it can, for example, in a hospital, there is this thing when working with groups in FLFE, there's a principle called the law of non-interference. And so when we're looking at, say, a service project, let's say we wanted to help hospitals. So we would have to test if it was in the highest and best interest of all creation for us to put, that would be the inquiry, it is in the highest and best interest of all creation for us to apply the FLFE service anonymously at full strength. And we would get a no. Mm-hmm. Because we need to participate in that with the person so they can manage the hydration and at least be aware of the conditions that are changing in the environment so they can help people. Now with the Pay It Forward program that we have, the PIF we call it, you can give that, you can put that in a hospital, you can put it on any place in the world because it's at a level of consciousness that is below the threshold of the law of non-interference. It is permissible, or it is in the highest and best interest of all creation, would be a better way to say it, for us to be able to put that on any environment and leave it on indefinitely. So that's sort of what we have to work with. We have to look at, it's not just what we think would be helpful, it's really what is in some objective truth's perception that it is helpful. And so so we use kinesiology to do that. So forming the inquiries is very, very important. In fact, we typically have to write out the context of what we're trying to achieve, and then we form our inquiry in that context and measure that inquiry in the context. And then it's a very rigorous, disciplined, time-consuming, laborious process. If you're going into a new area of research, once you've done a lot of research, you kind of get to know your way around it, and
yes.
Things go a lot faster. It's like if I had to start a radio show and do interviews, I'd be tripping over myself for months. But it's like falling off a log for you. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, 2,000 strong. So yes,
yes.
you get to know it wrong. Yes, what I think you're talking about is free will. Because this is also something where people have to participate. A lot of people want that downloadable app and it's doing all the work for me and I don't need to do anything. And what we're saying to the world right now is, no, you need to step up and be a participant in your own life, in your own journey. And if you are choosing to accept this higher vibration, that means, yes, the hydration, the detoxification, the being aware of what it's doing for you. It's not just for you to have a high buzz. It's for you to be proactive, not only in your own life, but in your calling and in your service of life. When people do actually ignite into that higher resonance, into that higher energy, they've done the process of the hydration and releasing the negativity and stepped into that space. What kind of revelations have you had from people that have suddenly I'm seeing things more clearly? I get it now. Have you had those kind of epiphanies?
Well, we hear from our customers quite often, our whole community, and we have a private Facebook page where it's a really open sharing situation, very safe, and it's really great because we have so many people that have a lot of wisdom, and new people that are on the free trial come in and they're sharing, like you say, what's happening for them, and these releases. We've seen it in the area of relationships quite a lot,
right? Where
these embedded patterns, where the patterns were in relationship, the people weren't in relationship.
Right.
And then when those start to fall away, then the people can come into relationship. Yes. And so we've heard about that, where this saved my marriage. This is like, and now I'm seeing this person as a person, and they're seeing me, and we're in this relationship in a different way. So that's one of the things.
Not seeing each other's history. You're being able to see each other, yes, in clarity.
Yeah, I mean, the patterns are, in relationship.
Yes.
The people. So we do see changes in relationship quite often. And we do, since, with this clearing of distractions, of chaotic energy, and this rising of the level of consciousness that you're in, people have different experiences in meditation. So they're dropping into these clearer spaces. So we do hear back that people are having different intuitive hits, and they're seeing their life in a clear way because now they're sort of able to meditate in a different way that they haven't before.
And even if a person is already resonating, they've done the work, they've done the process, they're already resonating at that high vibration, what it's doing is supporting that level of maintaining that, because sometimes you get an energy drain. I think one of you mentioned, maybe you did, Clayton, that you've got the piranhas in the world that come along and like to suck your energy out of you. And, when you're at a certain level, you get less of that because they have to rise up to get you. And so having something that keeps your resonance of your energy at that level for you, where sometimes it's hard for you to maintain on your own, it's a wonderful support system, to allow you to even kind of step back sometimes and just be in yourself, be in your energy, and get rejuvenated, because it's hard to just manifest that always on your own. You need that help from something else.
Yeah, we have lots of clients that are very high consciousness people. Some of them have been spiritual devotees for decades and decades, and they've heard about FLFE through someone in their community perhaps, and they're curious about it because it relates to raising consciousness, and so sometimes it helps them go to the next level.
Yes.
We all have a next level we're trying to go to and sustain. And people have asked us, well, I've been on this path for 30 years, and why would I need this? And well, you may not need it, and it may not be for you. And when you are at a high level of consciousness, part of your energy, or let's say a higher level of consciousness than your environment, part of your energy goes out to the environment.
Yes.
We're just radiating it all the time. It comes through us, not necessarily from us. It can come from us as well, but that's a little harder to sustain. Most of the shamanic paths and different paths and healing paths will tell you to try to bring the energy through and not take it from you, because then you'll get very exhausted.
Right.
So these people will often experience that they don't have to put as much unconscious attention into managing their environment because they just feel safer and more relaxed, and they're able to use that energy for themselves.
Right.
So it's not just for those of us who struggle with things, it's for people who are highly evolved and are looking to take the next step.
A maintenance program, it's allowing them to elevate, but also at the same time to rejuvenate, especially people who are hands-on healers. They're giving, that energy is coming through them all the time, but there's still always a lot of their own energy coming out of it. And, at the end of the day, they could be rather depleted or just, needing that boost up. So having their home environment to go back to, where they can just take that breath and allow that energy to rejuvenate them, I think is very, very necessary for especially anybody in that line of work where they are doing any either mental or physical healing.
We've had practitioners, in fact, state that they've done their best work in an FLFE environment that they've ever done. Because again, they don't have to, the client. So if there's lots of healers in the town that I live in, and I know a few of them, and they say the work begins as soon as you commit to doing the work, even if the session's 3 or 4 days ahead.
Yeah.
But when you go into their office, they have a vibration that they've built up in the office, and that's where you get to release a little bit. There's all these steps you go through before you get to the clinician's environment, where it's even higher than in the waiting room, and and sort of the process has started days before. So that all helps the work that people are doing. And for those of you who are into Hawkins' work, the average FLFE client is now going up 12 points in 90 days.
Wow.
On the service, the average. That's very significant. And
how does that get measured?
Through kinesiology. So we'd form an inquiry. Say the context would be to test the number of the average amount of points that the FLFE subscriber would go up in over 90 days, and we would write the inquiry out and then test it. And typically we do our testing in a triad. Once we form the inquiry, then Jeff will test it and I will test it, and we have an assistant who's becoming quite proficient at testing. And we're creating a culture here in the company, and that's kind of Jeff's specialty, where kinesiology is becoming a part of our vernacular, part of our language, part of our conversation, and people are getting more interested in it, and they're experimenting with it, and we're helping them a little bit. So we'd like to have, or at least the dream is to have a group of very good testers, because if you have those issues or attachments about something, you may not be able to get good data in one area. So one person may be able to find missing objects, but somebody else can't. One person can test people really well, somebody else can't test people or a person, or there's a situation where they can't, they find that their data is is skewed or distorted because they're attached to a certain outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to have a community of testers in the office to get more and more levels of verification. Although in certain areas we're really, really good, and that's the areas we kind of stick to. But it would be nice if we could do other things. We had a wider scope of measurement capacity, if you want to call it
because
that.
a lot of people kind of expect a massive big change, but they're subtle, the changes, aren't they? I mean, you probably maybe find that you might be more tired, or that there's something you've been carrying around in you, either physically or emotionally, that needs to be released in order for the equilibrium of that higher vibration to step in. And so with anything, there is a process that you have to go through to get into that balance, into that energetic balance, when now you can start using that energy more productively. So, it's not a question of you switched on, well, hang on, where's this vibration? Am I resonating now? Is that part of that water is not only hydrating, but it's also detoxing and releasing old negatives so that the positivity can step in. So, I think that's the reason why you give, the 14-day trial, right? Because that 14 days is the time period where releasement happens and that higher elevation comes in.
Yes. I mean, the length of time of that trial was, initially, that's where so much good can happen. I mean, it's a gift. The free trial is just beneficial for the person. So much can get released and cleared out of the body in that period of time. And you're right, it is subtle. And some people immediately they know it's on, they know it's off. They can just tell it instantly. And so we build in a way in the customer portal where they can turn on and off the service, and they can turn on and off the EMF mitigation separately. So they can experiment with it. And that's part of what we encourage people to do is trust themselves and experiment and see how it feels. But what's come out of it, it's really interesting, is that with all this energy available in the body's now elevating itself in many ways and repairing maybe some old things that need to get repaired, is the nutrients, are important.
Yes.
And it's this area that we're sort of, it's not our specialty, but we're discovering that there's this consciousness of nutrition where there's certain things taken together that are important for our evolution. And water is, as you said so well, water's one of them. And so we have some hydration recommendations, on the website. But then we also discovered that magnesium and essential fatty acids, omega-3s specifically, taken together within 30 minutes, support the nervous system to hold more energy.
Interesting. And the fatty acids, what would they be? Omega-3s?
Omega-3s, yeah. So fish oils are a great source. But the two of those together support the nervous system in a way that, some people feel it right away. So if they take the two together, they feel like this bump. But what it's doing is it's supporting the physical body to hold more light, to hold more energy. And so it's supporting the capacity of the nerves to carry more energy. And so that it's a building process. And it seems that the more time we spend in a high conscious field, the more the body acclimates and grows this capacity. And it needs nutrients, and that's where the magnesium, the essential fatty acids.
That's really good to know. And of course, magnesium everybody needs, and men need a different magnesium to women, by the way, folks. So when you're buying that magnesium, do inquire that. There's also, you're talking about the nervous system, and fiber optic fascia. Is coming from the brain, and underneath your skin, and that little white sinewy stuff is all that fiber optics, which actually gets your body moving. So every move that you do, the command from the brain goes through the body. And if that fascia is damaged in any way, through accidents, through this, through that, the messaging is not getting through. And this is where we get so much blockage in the world, in the body. And so we often refer to as releasing your chi. And of course, things like acupressure and acupuncture, they're wonderful at releasing the blockages and getting that energy running through your body. And so if we have this device on us that is allowing our energy to break through and to run more fluidity, it in itself will start healing those areas that are being blocked, because it's releasing the clampness and opening it up and allowing that chi and that energy to run through our body. We're water, we are energy, we are matter, we are consciousness, and everything about it needs to flow. And where we run into health problems, emotional problems, spiritual problems is when we become stagnant and that flow can't be there. So having a device that allows that energy to constantly be fluidly moving within us on so many levels is helping us.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned stagnation. We actually have a program called the Anti-Stagnation Program on FLFE, and it's based upon the principle of Chinese medicine, where the stagnation or blockage of qi creates disease.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we don't make health claims, and we're careful about that. And we do have a program that's specifically written. And these programs, again, so the context of the program would be to reduce or eliminate stagnation of energy in the body that's detrimental to one's evolution. That would be perhaps a context. And then we'd write out a way to measure that, which would be in our inquiry. And then we would write a program out that would be a list of requests to divinity to heal that person's body. So, for example, in our body, most of us have deposits. We call them liver stones, or gallbladder stones are really well known, or kidney stones. And in those stones, we were having a conversation about this one day, and Jeff actually came up with the thought of, he believed that the stones held the energetic history or the energetic signature of the shock and trauma of an event in our lives, and that's perhaps where the coagulation and stagnation happened, because we couldn't process it. And so we found out that was true. And so we have a request to divinity in the programming to eliminate the shock and trauma that's held in those deposits. And that's an example of the specificity of how we work if we get into the details instead of the broader principles. And that's why that free trial is so important, because it takes time for the negative energetic history of even that's held in those deposits to be released.
Yes.
And so oftentimes people will have a very significant surge in consciousness in the first few days, because a lot of that history they're carrying in their body that's negative is being encouraged to just move, and then it can flow through us.
Yeah.
Now, growth always isn't comfortable.
No.
Of course. And we are getting more and more, as the company's developed, into like next year, we'll probably release an energetic medicine technique that helps us manage the release of those blocked, stuck, stagnant energies in a way that's more manageable. Because some people don't have the tools to stay present with those sensations, and they misinterpret them as being something that they're not.
Right.
We all do that.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, you know, I'm always going into the analogy of birth. You know, I mean, even carrying a child for 9 months, you're going through a process, and sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's uncomfortable. And then, of course, the labor. You know, it could be excruciating, painful, or it could be a breeze. It wasn't in my case. And then, you know, the actual birthing. And then once that child is in your hands, you've forgotten all about the pain. But, you know, the rebirthing of ourselves, in becoming into that higher consciousness, into that higher being, into that being that's been released, we have got to be willing to go through that process and allow that release to happen. We can help that process along by, you know, verbaging. I release you. I encourage you. I nurture you. I love you. Of course, EFT is really wonderful on that as well, emotional freedom technique. And using that in combination of it, we can be our own healers along with these wonderful devices that can help our body along. And so many people today, you know, I'm one of them. I've got this wonderful thing called fibromyalgia, you know, which is the misfiring of everything, and it has a domino effect of all these other issues, which I choose not to feed, but every now and again, because the energy is not being fed, comes back to tap me on the shoulder. And I think it's allowing that to happen. And I've had people that have worked on me energetically that have gone deep down into my many cellular level and released past history, past lifetimes, past pains, past suffering. And in that releasement, it's actually a wonderful layer of releasing our body. So if we stop just looking at ourselves as a surface blood and flesh and start looking at ourselves as cellular levels, and needing to release that and be willing to go through the process, we become part of our own healing, which is so imperative.
That's well said. We're proponents of the emotional freedom technique and other energetic medicine tools. We encourage people to use them, and that's one of the ways that we can direct our own process to a larger and larger degree. Sometimes it seems to have a life of its own, and those are the dark days, but
the sun will come out tomorrow.
The sun will come out tomorrow. Yes. Well, I think we've all had a few dark nights of the soul. I think we're all over 30 here, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Right. Oh, yeah. But I think it's actually understanding the darkness, because we truly not only appreciate the light, but I think the thing is to get to a space in life where you're not afraid of the darkness, but within the darkness you can see the light, the clarity. And, that comes through that higher elevation. That comes through raising that vibration, that clarity of knowingness, knowing what you need to know when you need to know it, trusting the intellect of the divine, the soul, the consciousness with the heart, resonating with the spirit action, and the mind will know what it needs to know when it needs to know it. And, getting to that state, you realize that you're living very much in the frequency of now, in the present. And in the present is all you need to take care of. And what you do now is already seeding the possibilities for the next moment. And it's a wonderful level to be at that vibration, because your clarity of understanding who you are and what you're here for, and just simply doing what you're here for. No needing to validate, no needing to justify, but just being is where we really would love people to step up into being, because at that higher elevation, you're not chasing your tail. You're not chasing, what am I here for? What's life all about? You're not chasing expectations, or having expectations chase you. You're only popular if you're rich. You're only something if you're good looking. You're only something if you're that. And we step into our beingness of who we really are. And in that awesomeness of discovery of who we are and what our instrument is and what we're here for, we can take that breath in that beautiful resonance and actually understand the true meaning of our lives and what life is really about. So I think a lot of people allow a great deal of their anxiety to come through these old programming, as you put it, which I love it, relationship, delete the old programming so you can actually develop a relationship with yourselves in the now, as you are now. That goes to every relationship we have with self and with everything else, isn't it? Get rid of what doesn't serve us so that we can step up into being who we really are and have those wonderful relationships with everyone else on that beautiful vibrational level and not on old, outdated programming.
Yeah, the other way we think about that is freedom.
Yes. It is ultimate freedom, isn't it? Freedom to be, free will, yes.
Yeah, I mean, freedom from your old past history, freedom from your patterns, freedom from maybe negative beliefs that hold you back, but also freedom from your environment, from the negative history in the land, from whatever it is that is coming from the outside that is
negative neighbor.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, or EMFs. I mean, it's just whatever, we look at it in terms of consciousness and what's lowering consciousness, and we're looking to, like, what's the freedom zone? What's the best zone that we can be in to be free and to, like you say, be our full self, our full expression of potential that we can be.
I mean, you two guys both coming from kind of a different walk of life, and you met, connected, and have built this. As you said, you didn't know you were going to do this. It was just exploratory. And then because you saw what the benefits were, you decided this needs to get out, to the public. Go back a few years and say, this is what you're going to be doing, guys. Would it have been, oh yeah, really, right. Oh, would it have been, really? when we're willing to take the journey and explore, learn, apply, share, you know, that journey itself becomes such an incredible expansion that benefits so many other people. And we're inviting people to step into that wonderment of whatever the exploration is about, because you have no idea how it's going to help humanity. You've got this wonderful device product. There are other people with other things. That's part of the orchestra, isn't it? You know, when you're going to be testing with the Nanomoto Society with the water, and also with Robert Williams on his heart app, and to see how those come together, how they support one another, how they maybe even raise that frequency out into a larger expansion. It's exciting. But because you're willing to explore and you're willing to collaborate, you know, this is why that elevation really works. You've got so many people that discover something and no, I can't share it. I can't have anybody steal it. You know, it's mine. You guys have both come from a thought of, we need to get this out. More people need to experience it to make their lives better. And I thank you for that, because we need more of that in the world.
Well, we need more people like you getting the word out as well. And
that's what it's about. Share. And again, be willing to explore and try it for yourself. You don't know what this is going to do for you until you're willing to try it. And it's not going for the 15 days again. Is it happening yet? Is it doing anything yet? Can I analyze it? Just be in your life, drink a lot of water, and then assess yourself at the end of the 14 days and go, okay, do I feel better? As you said, some people feel it and some people don't. And it's just one of those beautiful, subtle things in the background there. That is your soul, heart, spirits, and energies support system. And you know, supporters aren't always there 24 hours by our side, but we know that they've always got our back. You've got something there that's got our back, that's got our energy back. So on those low days, it's there to pick us up. It's there to propel us up higher. It's there to maintain. And it's just a wonderful, good friend to have, to know it's got you.
That was pretty well said.
Yes, very well said.
Yeah, and not everybody notices it, but maybe they notice their spouse change, or their plants, or the plants are lasting like a week and a half or 2 weeks. They're cut flowers that they buy instead of 4 days, or their pets are calmer. So it's not always. We have an email that goes out after people sign up. It's called the Principles of Discernment. I think there's 25. There may be more. We might have added to it. Different things you can look for in an environment. It's like, okay, is it changing? And, you know, you have control. You can turn it on. You can turn the service on and off, and you can turn the FLFE mitigation on and off. So you do have control over that.
Measure for your son. I did the trial run with the home, and now I'm doing one with the phone. I am a sensitive. I'm one of these people that pick things up. I actually cannot walk barefoot on the earth because I feel that vibration so hard. I'm very much a cosmic being. And, you know, very often you do feel this overwhelmingness of static that is out there. And I have to kind of put my parameter around me to protect myself. So having something like this, that again, that's got my back, that on those days where you get that wave that's going out there, maybe I haven't been aware of my parameters, I know that basically that's my force field out there. May the force be with you. That's my force field out there that's giving me that protection, that's giving me that extra energy that I need, or maintaining it, because you can't always be on your own. You know, it's hard to be on your own. So I exude a lot of energy through the day and all the work that I do. And yes, it's coming through me. It is energizing while it's coming through me. But then afterwards, I can find myself very, very tired. And so having something that can maintain that energy so the fatigue level isn't so high would be awesome.
Yeah, and that's why we developed the cell phone and the object, the FLFE everywhere, because we were leaving our homes and leaving that sanctuary, and we're like, wow, you know, we're out in the world traveling, and to be able to take that with you was really important. And that's why we created that, and people have found that to be really useful too.
Well, I've got the phone one right now, and it's been very interesting this week because last night I slept well. The night before, I had one of those nights where I'm traveling. You know, when it goes off and does that, there is no switching it off. I'm off, you know, and I maybe had 3 hours sleep. And then yesterday I had, 2 shows back to back. And, it was like, oh, how am I going to get through this? And then the moment I'm on, my energy is there. But I was really surprised that after I wasn't so depleted. I thought, I'm going to be buggered. I kind of need an afternoon nap. I didn't. I had actually 7 shows to upload, a few challenges with the internet. And I just got through it all and was perfectly all right and went to bed at a normal time and had a good night's sleep. That definitely is different for me. So, I really am liking the cell phone one because I think it's giving me that support and not allowing me to get so depleted as sometimes that I can, which then, of course, triggers the fibro and everything, which, don't need that.
Well, the cell phone itself now is 580 on the Hawkins map, which is an interesting experience just to hold it in your hand. And that's what we saw was needed in our initial EMF work was how do we raise the consciousness of space, and that increasing that cell phone to that level, everything's vibrating now at a different level.
Yes.
And so those antennas are sending out that energy. It's now vibrating at a different level, and it becomes positive. It becomes the environment becomes a high conscious environment rather than being lowered by that energy. So that bubble now around the cell phone, it's 575 and then 4 feet of the device. So that's a high level of consciousness.
Yes.
And then as it goes out to 300 feet, it's 555. So that benefits others around you. And then within that, about 5 foot zone is the EMF mitigation tube. So it does create that sanctuary that you can take with you, and it's that enlivening or energetic support is what we were wanting to create.
And of course, people's cell phones, because it's your means of communication, is generally always on you or around you. So, it's like instead of, feeling guilty carrying a cell phone, it's like, I'm carrying my energy booster with me. This is my battery. I'm being recharged. So good excuse to carry that. So, I think if you are a household, it's wonderful to have, the family one, the household one. But also I think having the phone one, especially if you are in business and you are on your phone and around your phone a lot, because I think that also when you look at kids going to school with their cell phones today, although I'd like to see them dropped in the box while they're at school all day, but they're with them. If this was a higher vibration, the concentration level would be better with the kids. So again, so many benefits, a lot of people have said to me, okay, I've woken up I'm aware that there's this consciousness, like I'm becoming aware and I'm seeing things that I never saw before. But what do I do about it? I don't understand. I did a show when somebody said the soul's agenda, and she said she went to everything. She went to psychic. She did all these programs, everything to tell her what her soul purpose was. But she said, but I don't get it. I don't get it. She was too busy intellectualizing it rather than feeling it and allowing it. So if we have something that supports that beautiful soul energy into our discovery, into allowing to discover what our purpose is, and in that support, it's going to direct us on the right path, because it's going to allow us to tap into those energies and those other energies you're going to be collaborating with in your self-discovery. So I can't see any negatives here, guys. I just keep seeing one positive after the other.
Well,
there's an occasional discomfort as we grow from one level to another.
Right.
Those are the things we just have to be aware of.
Right. Well, wasn't there discomfort beforehand when you were living in all that negative vibration and that anxiety? Wasn't that uncomfortable? I'd rather go for the discomfort of the different levels, which is mine. Yeah, give that to me anytime. Thank you very much. Who wants to be living in the anxiety?
Yeah, we just have to be careful that we don't make it a panacea. We do have a section on what FLFE is not. Even when you go to a pilgrimage site, and people have miracles happen at those sites, they get into these high vibrational states, and things happen that are usually impossible to happen because the energy just isn't there.
Right.
The body has its own innate intelligence, and it will do the healing, and it will do a lot of the things that it needs to do. We just need to give it the resources. And so having more positive energy is like writing a check for that house renovation that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just it's a currency. It's a currency of life.
Yes.
And so the more positive currency of life that we have, the more possibilities can emerge for our lives. And I think we talked earlier about following your bliss. I remember there was a really big kind of movement at one point where it was, I think there's a book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know Follow Your Bliss was the way that I associate that is with Joseph Campbell. I've been reading one of his books again. And so having a higher level of consciousness allows us to be more aware of the bliss states, of what's working, where the joy is. And if we move towards the joy and take action and don't over mentalize things.
Yes. Feel the knowledge, don't think the knowledge. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Then the path gets more joyous.
I mean, there's also the great book, Celestine Prophecy, and how that energy makes things grow, more abundantly, more fruitfully, and, grows our own vibrational awareness. When as human beings, we're still very, very limited in our thought process. And the more we're willing to take off the blinkers and just believe in the possibilities and understand, we don't need to understand the science behind everything, but we do need to allow that, quote, science to happen to us, because it is a time, if you look through the ages, we've, had the evolution that we seem to get stuck for a number of centuries in the flight and fight, kill you before you kill me, and, greed. And then, of course, in the last 30, 40 years, it's all been about opulence and greed and 1%. And leave the 99% to flush down the drain. Now we're in that empowerment of step into your own empowerment. Step up and be a part of the solution. Let go of what is not serving you. Have that boundary of tolerance around you where you only resonate with people on that higher level, and be inspirational and invitational. We're in that phase of life right now where people are wanting that. And devices like this is just simply helping them achieve it in a way where that vibration is supporting them. That means that you're able to see the things in front of you more clearly because you haven't got the static, you haven't got the anxiety, you haven't got that whole nervous system kind of questioning, yes, but what if, but what if, but what if? You're in more of a space of, oh, what if? And more inquiry. And so we need this support. Because, as it's life force energy. Our life force needs to be energized. And you have a device that energizes you into your life force. Boy, you start stepping into your life and really understanding why you're here. And you have fun doing it. You're not running in fear all the time. You're running in wonderment and the excitement of what can be.
The human beings are so powerful. We are so powerful, and we're starting to understand that better now.
Yes.
And the more that we can support ourselves to just be who we are and step into that power and that expression in the world, the better. And that's really what we're all about, is supporting that environment to be able to do that. And just empowering ourselves, our customers, all of us in this community to be all that we can be and rise in consciousness is really increasing freedom. It's more freedom, more joy,
more clarity,
more clarity, and more ourselves.
Yes. I mean, this is called Self-Discovery Station, and it is about our self-discovery. It is about discovering just how awesome we are. It is about discovering what our purpose, our gifts are. It is about discovering how we can be of service to one another. It is about discovering what wonderments lay out there that we have not been able to see before because we didn't allow it, or we lived constantly in just survival or in fear. We're at a level now where we're asking people to be exploratory, to open up their eyes to the wonderful understanding of how this beautiful planet and the cosmos works together. The matrix that is in the planet, the energy source that comes from the universe, that we are all particles of that universe, and so everything runs through us as well, and that we can tap into source anytime we want. And it's an invitation now to let go again of old programming, let go of old dogma, and think by feeling for yourself of what that truth is and what it lies with you, and not old paradigm teachings that you've just mindlessly bought into, being guided along rather like sheeple. And, you know, now it's time to step into yourself. Stop selling yourself short. You're awesome. We need you. Step up into that higher vibration, join the orchestra, and we'll create a symphony that resonates out to the rest of the world. So, folks, how do people sign up? You've got the 14-day trial. How do they sign up for that? And you also have your little webinars that go on that invites people to kind of follow along and share experiences. You've got a lot going on there. So share on how people can do that.
Well, I believe you'll have a link at some point on your site.
Yes, most certainly. But let's give it for the audio for the people to listen to.
Sure. So FLFE.net is the website. So you can either come to Sara's and click on her links, or you can go to FLFE.net, and you'll see there a lot of information, but there's a place to do the free trial. So you can do it on a home, or you can do it on a cell phone. And there's support, plenty of support along the way during the free trial. There's, as we mentioned, a Facebook group, a private group that you can talk about. And we're planning to migrate that to our own private group as soon as we're able. Many people don't like to be on Facebook, but this is, you know, a private place where we can talk. And the office is open. It's in Canada on Western time, Pacific time. So you can always call into the office, talk to someone. Everyone there is really supportive and helpful. And that's, as we designed the company, we wanted always to have that resource.
Yes.
You know, you can call in, you can talk to a real person. You can, you know, you could sign up, you can cancel, you can do all these things. And it isn't one of these web businesses where you can't reach anyone.
Right.
We're there. You know,
and no question is, you know, too wacky. I mean, it doesn't matter. Don't feel shy.
Right.
If you've got a bizarre question, don't worry. If they haven't got the answer straight away, they'll find it. Right.
Right. The wackier, the better.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think in a lot of ways, because we've been so suppressed for so long with such negative energy, and we're now removing that negative energy and allowing ourselves to elevate, it's also a time to lighten up, isn't it? Have some fun, get a little goofy, you know, step out of those restraints. And we need a lot more laughter and a lot more joy, you know, that bliss that you were talking about, Clayten. You know, we need to step into that bliss, and that bliss is not artificial. It is tapping into our own beautiful cosmic energy that's in there that will give us a high far better than any other substance. Mm-hmm. And, you know, having an energy source that allows us to step into that is absolutely fantastic. You know, we all need support, folks. You're not meant to do it on your own. Life is about collaboration. It is about teamwork. We want you to raise your vibration. We want you to step into a higher consciousness. We understand you've got some deprogramming to do. We understand you may have some physical ailments that's challenging you. But this is an instrument that will help you with those issues. And if you're not just the 15-day trial, you can, of course, buy into it, and if it's not working for you 2-3 months down the road, you can cancel. But the body takes 3 months to change over its entire chemistry and its cell structure. So allowing a 3 months to really look at yourself and mark down every week some changes that you see in yourself, and then go back and look at that 3 months and go, boy, you know, that's improved, that's this, that's that, I feel this, I feel that. Now you truly understand how that energy is working. So if the 15 days doesn't give it to you, sign up, go for the 3 months, and really take record of where you're at, and you will just see that higher elevation that's going on subtly in the background and how your life is being improved. But if you're not willing to participate, if you're not willing to be interactive with your life and use a tool that's helping you get there, you're not going to see the results. So try it and see for yourself and see where it takes you. This has been absolutely great, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it's been
talking
so
to you.
great to talk with you.
And, to everyone else, remember, we all need that help. Our energy is being drained by what's going on in the world. If we have an energy source that keeps us up in that equilibrium, constantly keeps reboosting us, helping us rise up into our beautiful elevation, into that consciousness of clarity and freedom and health, we become better human beings, which means we can be more of service to one another, which means we can seek that harmony and that peace that seems to be so elusive. So it's up to each one of us. So until next time, folks, I encourage you to sign up and give it a try, and to also just step into yourself, step into that higher consciousness, because I promise you it's a beautiful place to be. So until next time, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.